What's up, guys? I'd like to take some time to talk about the fear of falling off the spiritual path and what that even means. What even is the spiritual path, and why do we get all uptight and scared about falling off of it? Can you fall off the spiritual path? You know? Can you blow it? Can you mess up and lose your spiritual touch and your spiritual zest? Because it's something that I've seen around a lot. Not really, it's not something that's like popular, but it's something I've definitely seen around, of this, just people thinking, you know, they used to be spiritual and now they're not, or what I'm talking about here, this fear of losing their spiritual whatever, and that they've lost it and they're not spiritual anymore. And I just want to talk about like what that even is, you know, because personally I've experienced that feeling of this sort of anxiety that all this beautiful metaphysical stuff that I've been involved with for the past 6 years, there's been multiple times throughout that period where I've had this fear that I'm going to lose it, that it's going to go away and I'm not going to be spiritual anymore. And it sounds so silly talking about this stuff, but I feel like it's important to address these things, because no matter how silly it can seem silly when you say it out loud, but meanwhile we're busy thinking these types of things all day long, of these subtle fears and paranoias that create this feeling within us. But then when we say it, we realize how kind of, you know, silly it sounds. But it's a feeling. It's a feeling, this fear of falling off the spiritual path. And I want to just take this time to do my best to share with you guys what that's all about, you know? Can you fall off the spiritual path? Yeah, like I've said multiple times throughout the past 6 years of my life or so, I've experienced this fear of, oh God, I'm falling off the spiritual path. I'm not spiritual anymore, you know? And there's so much to look into when you really sit down and look into this feeling of this fear, you know? What's that all about? Why are you afraid that you're gonna fall off the path? Why am I afraid that I'm gonna fall off the path? What even makes that feeling arise? Usually for me, it's these periods of time where, you know, I spend a good amount of time, most of what I listen to and watch and consume of media and stuff is teachings and lectures and, you know, stuff like that, spiritual stuff, what you'd call spiritual stuff. And there'll be periods of time where it just seems irrelevant, and it seems like, what the, like I've heard it all and it's not interesting and it's not fascinating, and I see this infinitely wise statement, but it's just kind of like, oh, whatever, you know, that's just another spiritual statement, you know? And, you know, I'll still meditate and I'll still do my devotional practices and my little rituals and ceremonies and whatnot, but I'm not moved into a state of, you know, unitive bliss or oneness or a deep philosophical reflection on something, or I don't feel that something, you know what I mean? And in those moments and periods of time, which can go for, weeks or months or whatever, there begins to arise this fear that, I'm falling off the spiritual path. I've lost it. I'm not spiritual anymore. All of that is just the past, and now I'm just a normal average Joe, and I'm not spiritual anymore, and God has forsaken me, the Spirit has forgotten me, and I am just out in the wind, man, and it's all uphill from here, There's this completely dramatic scene that takes place, at least within me. I'm talking about myself, and maybe you can relate, maybe you don't, whatever it is. But there's this feeling of, oh no, I'm losing it. I'm losing that spiritual path. And that's kind of what I'm trying to talk about, is like, what's that all about? Why do we get afraid that we're falling off the spiritual path? I've spent a lot of time feeling to myself, and I still feel this in a sort of intuitional way, that you can't fall off the spiritual path, because the spiritual path and spirituality is life. It's life itself. You don't fall off life, you don't fall off existence. I think life and existence is very, very complex, for sure, and that our personalities change and circumstances change and all those things. But as far as the fundamental work that we're doing in this lifetime, you or me or whoever it is being busy thinking they've fallen off the spiritual path, or they're not spiritual enough, or they don't have that magic zest anymore, that's part of the spiritual work that's being done. And that's the mind trip of the spiritual path, is that it's not the gross level. Spirituality isn't just feeling unified and blissed out and clear and one and joy, and it's not just those gross levels of feeling. Those are positive feelings, and they can be products of spiritual work that we've been doing, but that's aside from the point. The point of spiritual work isn't to feel unified and blissed out, you know what I'm saying? I don't know. But notice how it's when we're not feeling those blissed out feelings and crystal clear ways of perception. It's when we're not feeling that stuff that this fear starts to arise of, I've lost it, man. You know what I mean? And that's interesting, because that shows me that what I, on an egoic level, what I'm identifying as true spiritual work is those positive feelings and those positive states of being. But spirituality is also the lows, and it's also the boredom and the disinterest and lack of fascination and the sadness and the uptightness and the judgment. It's all of it, man. It's all of it. And the reason that I can feel like I'm falling off the spiritual path is because I'm not my container of spirituality doesn't hold the other parts of life that are going on. If my perspective of what spirituality is cannot contain all of life itself and all the highs and the lows and everything in between, that's setting myself up for failure. Because if I identify spirituality as the high, but then I feel low, what does that mean? What am I going to make of that? If spirituality is being high and I feel low, what do I make of that? Oh, I'm not spiritual anymore. I messed up. I blew it, I'm not, I lost it. And it's such an interesting feeling, And I don't know if I've said it, but there's a lot of things in this lifetime right now that people are afraid of and can be afraid of. A lot of no more silly than being afraid that you've fallen off the spiritual path, but very silly things of fearing that you're not pretty enough, or fearing you don't have enough money, or fearing that you were wrong in an argument, or fearing that you're not whatever, you know what I'm saying? And then there's some people over on the sidelines that are fearing that they've fallen off the spiritual path. It's no different than the humanity of what we are and all our perceived mistakes and all our miracles and all our everything. It's no different. It's no different. It's just that you're a spiritual person that's all uptight that they're falling off the spiritual path, you know? And if you're busy thinking that you're falling off the spiritual path and you're losing it, let me tell you that's not the worst thing you could be afraid of, because it's so multifaceted and it's so complex to talk about this shit. But on one level, that fear of falling off the spiritual path is coming from a place of egoic misunderstanding of what the spiritual path even is. But it's also coming from a deeper place, or can be coming from a deeper place, which is pointing us in a direction of continuing to work on ourselves, of continuing to work on yourself, you know? I hope you don't mind my rough intro here. Sometimes making these videos is kind of like cold starting a diesel engine on a winter morning, you know? You turn it over and it takes a little bit before she warms up, you know? And another thing that I'm kind of feeling out as I begin to talk about this thing, because, you know, there's one level of me however many minutes ago that's like, I'm gonna make a video talking about this fear of falling off the spiritual path. But now as I sit down here and talk about it, I realize the silliness of it, I guess. I don't know how else to put it. Because I don't feel like you can. I don't feel like you can. You can fear that you're going to, but I don't feel like you can. And I feel like the depth in which you believe you've fallen off the spiritual path is directly proportionate to the depth at which you were involved with the spiritual path to begin with. You know what I mean? If you got into spirituality as just this sort of like cute little personality coat that you put on, I'm a spiritual person, you know what I'm saying? Like just like hypey shit, like doing it like because it makes you look good or it makes you look fascinating, or I'm a spiritual person, you know what I mean? If that's the level at which you got involved with spirituality, I think just as easily you can take that coat off and then venture off into some other personality garment, you know what I'm saying? But when you really experience moments in your life, multiple moments, continuous moments in your life, which point to something so beyond the matrix of thinking, and you intuitively feel the depth of yourself and the depth of existence itself, and you dance with that mystery, even for a moment. Those kinds of moments when you really begin to taste the depth of the spiritual path, over time of continuing to taste that depth, yeah, sure, you might fear that you're falling off the path at certain times, but you start to realize, like, it's kind of like the sun going down and fearing that it's not going to come up, you know? You start to develop a sort of faith that it doesn't really matter what the mind is saying. My job is to do my work, do my dharma, do my practices. Because I'm not doing these practices to make myself feel all spiritual or to look spiritual. I'm doing these practices to touch a deeper place in myself that's behind all that stuff, you know? And when you really start to touch spirituality at a deep level, although you may fear, just like I do, oh my God, I'm losing it, I'm not spiritual enough. You start to realize that that's just another ego game. That's just another ego hype, you know? And like I was saying a moment ago about all the things that you could be afraid of all the things you could fear, you're fearing that you're not spiritual enough. Like I said, that's not the worst thing you could be fearing. Because, as I was saying, it can come from an egoic, silly, dramatic act. But it's also coming from, it can feel as though it's a sort of compass or a navigating device telling you to keep working, keep working, keep working, keep working. You know what I mean? Sometimes I've thought of it as the, I call it like the find me now test. When you touch God, when you touch the Spirit, when you touch the depth of the mystery and beauty, and you see it and it's there and you are dancing with existence and everything is unified and it's so beautiful and your mind is crystal clear and your being, all that's coming from you is love, you know, depth, just the depth of love. When you dance with that oneness, it's a beautiful experience. It's a beautiful experience. But then it's as though it's a test of some sort, you know? And like I said, I call it the find me now test. Do you really think I'm the bliss and the unity? Well, here, what's going to happen if you feel uptight? What's going to happen if you feel judgmental? What's going to happen if you feel sad? What's going to happen if this suddenly happens in your life? Something negative, you know? Where am I now? Where is God now? Did you think God was just the unity and the bliss? And that because you're not feeling unity and bliss, God doesn't exist anymore, and that you've messed up and spirituality isn't real? It's almost like these feelings of, you know, the opposite of the spectrum of feeling the bliss and the unity. It's almost like it's a test of the Spirit saying, how do you see me in everything? You know what I mean? No bliss and unity, find me now. Find me now. Are you able to see the mystery and the beauty in the lows? Because, as you're all well aware by now, you don't just live life in this exalted, ecstatic state. At least us normal folk, you know what I mean? You don't live life blissed out. But that also doesn't mean that you're only spiritual when you're blissed out, and when you're not blissed out, you're not spiritual anymore, you know? Find me now. If you really love me, if you really know me, find me now. That's what the Spirit says. That's what the Spirit says. when we experience these things that go against the image we have built of what spirituality is, of what spirit is, of what divinity is, of what God is. When we experience something that goes against that image, sure, you might believe that it's not spirit. But to me, like I've been saying, it's like spirit is saying to you, find me now. And going off of that test analogy, when you don't feel spiritual, when you don't feel unified, when you don't feel high and ecstatic, are you going to stop doing your spiritual practices? Are you going to stop meditating? Are you going to stop going for walks? Are you going to stop doing your rituals and ceremonies of devotion or whatever it is that you in particular do as a spiritual practice? Are you going to only do that stuff to get high? And then you do it and it doesn't get you high, so you say, fuck that, I'm not meditating. I'm not doing no ceremony. God doesn't come to me when I do my ceremonies anymore. Fuck those ceremonies, This is so interesting talking about it, because as I'm talking about it, I'm sensing like there's an ignorance to this fear of falling off the spiritual path, but there's also a deep wisdom to it. Kind of as there is with everything. There's an ignorant side and there's a really deep side and a profound side. Because like I've been saying, we can recognize, like through this fear of thinking we've fallen off the spiritual path, we can recognize that it's pointing us towards continuing to work on ourselves. If you're thinking you're falling off the path, that just shows you have more work to do on yourself, Or you continue to go down the road of thinking you've fallen off the path and go and live some other alternative lifestyle. But yeah, that doesn't even make sense to me, because like, as I've heard it put, like, what are you going to do? Go back and cultivate greed and hatred and judgment and anger and lust? Are you going to go backwards to that stuff? Because you can't forget. You know what I mean? You can't forget these things. Once you've waken up, you can't fall back asleep. Or at least it's a lot harder to. It's almost like there's an immature feeling of, oh, I've fallen off the path. That was just back then. Now it's just normal life. Spirituality isn't real. There's that level of it. The level where you get involved with spirituality for the high of it, and then when it's not getting you high anymore, you think it's not real and you lose your faith and go and do something else that gets you high. But there's also a maturity level to it as well. There's a maturity to this fear of falling off the spiritual path. Because I can sit here and say that fear within me of falling off the path, it's silly, yes. There's many silly aspects to it. Of how I just want to be high again, you know what I mean? Or thinking that spirituality is just the high states. But there's also a sense in me that understands that this fear of falling off the path is because what I've experienced in my life, the deepest moments of my life, have come through these spiritual understandings. And what I'm fearing is not falling off the path. What I'm fearing is believing that I'm not on the path anymore. you know? What I'm fearing is really the ego. I'm fearing believing in an illusion. And it takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of practice. And that's what I'm saying about how this fear can point you in the direction of continuing to work on yourself. It's just another mind game. It's just another mind game. You don't make bliss happen. You don't make faith happen. You don't make unity happen. These things come as they do and go as they do. And our work is to stay centered. It's crazy. The sun just dropped down below the trees just the littlest bit, and I immediately feel cold. The coldness. It's definitely fall. And see, that's another thing too that I just thought of. Like, we don't know what the hell's going on. I don't even know what I'm talking about. I just feel these certain ways and then sit down and talk about it. I'm just out here existing as a certain person, as a certain little individual incarnation of life itself. And I talk about that, you know? And like, we don't know what's going on. And what the sun thing made me think of was the amount of variables and the amount of factors and complexities and subtleties that go into why we feel the way we do. The seasons changing, you know, you hear people talk about like seasonal depression, where the earth tilts a little bit and then the winter happens and now they are depressed, and that kind of stuff. We don't know what's really going on. And we're over here, you know, Mercury's in retrograde and the earth tilts a little bit, and then, you know, a star goes by 17 million light years away, and then we're over here as the microcosm of all that going, oh my God, you know, I'm not spiritual enough. I'm afraid that God has forgotten me and doesn't hear my prayers, and oh man, I'm afraid I'm gonna be a normal person. And, you know, it's so trippy. It's so trippy and it's so confusing. And sometimes when I'm making these videos, it's hard. It's hard because I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. All I know is that there's this feeling, and I'm trying to use the limited vehicle of words to try to talk about that feeling, and hopefully to relate with any of you who may be watching this, so that one of you could maybe go, yeah, right, wow, that's crazy. I've felt like that before too. You know what I mean? Yeah, there's totally I've said it multiple times, but there's a silliness in worrying about falling off the spiritual path. What does that even mean? What does that mean? I'm worried I'm gonna fall off the spiritual path. You know what I mean? Like I've said, I don't even know what the hell I've said in this video, but do you think the spiritual path is the highs and the ecstasies and the blisses and the onenesses and the unities and all that shit and the stillness? Because what happens when the rest of life happens as well? And the rest of life being, you know, the sadnesses and the judgment and the anger and the desires and the greeds and all the other stuff of what it means to be human. If we think spirituality is just those highs, and then we experience the other end of the spectrum, the dualistic nature of life, we're gonna think something's wrong. We're gonna think something's wrong, you know? And it's so weird because when you're depressed or whatever, that can be the spirit itself pointing you towards, hey, something needs to change. Something needs to change. And it guides you in a certain direction in which you do stuff, hopefully in a mindful manner, that leads you in a more harmonious direction. But also, it can feel like, you know, you're doing everything, you're vibing, and then suddenly you feel down and sad, and that makes you wonder, damn, am I doing something wrong? But nothing's wrong, you're just feeling a certain way. It's just, it's so multifaceted, it's so complex and confusing and trippy, you know? And yeah, I don't know if I've talked much about it in this video, but like just over the past 2 weeks or so, there's been this slight anxiety that I'm like falling off the path or something. And like, what's that all about? What do you mean? What do I mean I'm falling off the path? Is it merely egoic drama stuff? Or is it a deeper navigation, you know? Saying, keep working, keep working, keep working, keep working. Because I've had this this feeling multiple times of worrying that I'm falling off the spiritual path, and you know, nothing about the spiritual path is exciting or fascinating or whatever. And you know, someone will come to me and show me this spiritual thing, and they'll be like, hey, this made me think of you, you know what I mean? And I'll be like, oh wow, that's beautiful, you know? But like, I'm not feeling like what they're showing me, you know what I mean? Even though they came to me because they know I'm this spiritual guy and they thought I'd appreciate it or whatever, and then they show it to me and I'm like, oh wow, that's neat, and then I'm over here not feeling spiritual. But anytime that's happened, it's happened multiple times in my life, suddenly something happens and it all makes sense. And I get the unity and the bliss and the oneness and the I don't know how to describe it. But suddenly it's like, right, that's right. Oh, I'm so silly, man. I'm so silly. I'm still tripping out about stupid stuff, you know? And sometimes those waves of remembering the depth are so potent and so powerful that I go, whoa, like, I want to go back to thinking I'm not spiritual anymore, because this is fucking intense. This is crazy. This is way more than I bargained for. I'd rather go back to being bored and worried that I'm not spiritual enough. You know what I mean? Because it's so overwhelmingly cosmic and existential that not only do I realize, okay, you can't fall off the fucking spiritual path. It doesn't go anywhere. I am it. It's happening. I can't stop or control it from happening. It is. Not only do I see that in crystal clear view, but I also feel like, oh my God, like I'd rather be this little individualized, worrying being that's all caught up in stuff, because this is fucking crazy. And oh, it's so trippy and so complex. Because then I start to feel bored and not fascinated and not curious and not passionate and stuff, and I go, man, where's that next spiritual hit at? You know, where's that next rush? Where's that unity at, baby? And in that boat, in that dimension, I want that overwhelming bliss. But then the overwhelming bliss comes, and I realize, oh, it's all perfect. There is no path, therefore I can't fall off of it. Oh, you know what I'm saying? And it's so powerful that I'm like, everything is happening at just the right rate. And if it were even a fraction different, I'd either wouldn't be spiritual at all, or I'd be so fucking lost in the sauce that I can't even tie my shoes. You know what I'm saying? Maybe you don't. Maybe this doesn't make any sense whatsoever, and that's okay. But yeah, you start through those periods that I've experienced of the bliss and the unity, and then the boredom and the lack of fascination and worrying that I've fallen off the path, and then the bliss and the unity again, and then the worry, and then the bliss and then the worry. Through all of that, you start to realize that what comes, and then it goes. And then it comes, and then it goes. And then it comes, and then it goes. And you start to not identify so heavily with the coming and going stuff. And this in turn tunes us more and more into the thing that is always here. The thing that is always present. Which is our very being. Which is where all this bliss and unity comes from. And it's where all the boredom and dissatisfaction comes from. It's all coming from somewhere, and it's happening to something, and you stop identifying with the stuff that comes and the stuff that happens and the stuff that goes, and you start to remember more and more you, yourself, your being, and it starts to not really matter as much the coming and going stuff. It starts to more just be, here I am, and there is bliss. And here I am, and there is dissatisfaction. And there is sadness. And there is unity. And there is ecstasy. And there is anger. And there is judgment. You start to see it all as an aspect of yourself. It's not like you're doing something wrong. It's not like you used to have it and now you don't. You are, and stuff is happening. And yeah, like I was saying a while ago, the find me now test. I don't know how clearly and precisely I described that, but it really does seem the case for me at times where it's like spirit itself, the holy rascal, the holy jester, you know? The trickster, the cosmic trickster is like, do you really think I'm just the bliss? Do you really think I'm just the ecstasy and the clear thinking and the non-judgment and the love? Do you think that's all I am? Well, here, how about you experience a little bit of sadness? How about you experience a little bit of boredom and a little bit of judgment and frustration and agitation and confusion? Experience a little bit of that, and let's see how well you can witness me within that. Find me now. Find me now. Do you really love me? Do you really know me? If you really know me, find me now. That's how it feels. That's how it feels. And that is what encourages me. It's what deepens my faith and encourages me to continue sitting, to continue working on myself, to continue looking into the dynamic of why I'm reacting to someone the way I am, why I'm reacting to a situation the way I am. To continue to just, to the best of my ability, be loving and calm and patient and receptive and present and aware, you know? It all points me, this is what I'm talking about with the immature side of the fear of falling off the spiritual path, and then the sort of deeper intuitive wisdom of this fear of falling off the spiritual path. It's a test. It's a test, you know? Are you going to give up your spiritual practice because you don't feel good? You know? If anything, and this is the wisdom in that fear and in that anxiety. If anything, not feeling good, if you're really getting down with the spiritual practice shit, not feeling good is going to drive you deeper to find spirit, to find the beauty. Because you're saying, this is I'm kind of being an asshole. I'm kind of being uptight. I'm kind of looking at life in a nihilistic way. I'm kind of being mean to people. I'm kind of being mean to myself. How do I move through this? Not to feel good, but to remember the depth of myself. To remember the depth of myself. It's very complex, as I've said multiple times. And there's no way in hell that in a YouTube video I'm going to thoroughly and fully describe this whole thing of falling off the path, and what is the path, and who am I, and what does it mean to be on the path, and can you fall off of it, and is the feeling of falling off the path silly and immature, or is it actually a deeper message to drive you further into the path? I don't know. I really don't know. Sometimes I think about this fear I have of falling off the spiritual path, and then I realize that there's people that aren't even aware or even care about the spiritual path and bettering themselves and becoming more loving and more present and more helpful and beneficial to humanity. There's people that don't even give two shits about that stuff. And then I realized that my fear of falling off the spiritual path isn't that big of a deal. It's all right. It's a good thing for me to be worried about. It's better than me being worried about if this girl likes me, or if I have enough friends, or if I'm an interesting person, or, you know what I'm saying? I'm sitting over here all worried, oh my God, I'm not spiritual enough. It's because I'm like, I don't want to forget God, dude. I don't want to forget the Spirit. I don't want to forget the Creator, the Source, whatever name you want to put to it. I don't want to forget, because I know how easy it is to forget. And like I was saying a while ago, I'm afraid of believing in an illusion that my mind creates. That's what I'm afraid of. Because at the end of the day, when I really sit down and silence myself, life is, I am, I'm here, and then I'm going to die. Things are going to happen. And there's no big deal. There's no big deal. Here we are. Life is. There's no difference between life and the spiritual path. You can't fall off of it. It all is. But there is that fear. There is that fear of, oh God, I'm not spiritual enough. I'm forgetting. I'm becoming closed-minded, and I'm losing my zest, and I'm not in tune, and I'm not in communion with the Spirit anymore. Oh no, you know? And it's just more. It's more work. It's more stuff that's being ironed out and smoothed out and worked on. You know what I mean? And yeah, what I'm afraid of is the identification with that. I'm afraid of identifying with, I'm falling off the spiritual path, because I'm aware that what happens when you identify with something is that you act out of that as if it were a reality. If I believe that I'm falling off the spiritual path, I'm going to act in ways that facilitate that reality that I'm living in. I'm falling off the spiritual path. Oh my God, that means that I'm a normal person, so I'm gonna stop thinking deep, and I'm gonna stop caring about meditating and doing ceremonies and appreciating nature, and you know what I mean? And you start to carry out what you believe in. And that's where my fear comes from, is I don't want to believe in that matrix, that delusion. I want to remember I want to remember what is. Remember what is. Remember what I am. And that's what drives me to sit and meditate and to do my ceremonies and my rituals and my yoga and my nature walks and my breathing and waking up in the morning and saying, here we are. Let's do it. What's today about? Am I gonna freak out that I'm falling off the spiritual path? Am I gonna get lost into this ecstatic oneness? What's gonna happen today? And it's all good. It's all good. And it moves me deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into just continuing to do what I'm doing and refining what I'm doing. And as Ram Dass has talked about, when you really start to get down with this shit, everything in your life begins to become grist for the mill of awakening. The worry of I'm falling off the spiritual path begins to be jet fuel for you to continue on the spiritual path. But this takes a lot of work. Which is what's so paradoxical about it is, it's the newcomers into spirituality who start to just kind of get gaze into spirit and flirt with the spirit a little bit, and then they don't feel that one moment of bliss that they felt. They don't feel that, and then they go, this is just a hype, this is bullshit, I'm just gonna go back to what I was doing. But when you really dive into this shit and you feel the depth, and then it goes and recedes a little bit, and you say, nah, life isn't just boring, life isn't meaningless, life isn't, I know I'm forgetting something, I'm forgetting again. Because in that unitive moment, you recognized how much you create a reality that isn't even real. It's only relative to the moments in which you're thinking in that way, When that stuff when you start, you feel the recession, the pullback of the depth, and you say, now is when I gotta keep practicing. And then it comes back, and there's this little thing in you that goes, that's right. I knew it. Oh, you know what I'm saying? And then it recedes again, and you go, oh shit. I knew it back then, but right now, I don't know if I know it. I don't know if it's real. I'm gonna keep practicing. I'm gonna keep focusing. I'm gonna keep devoting myself to the worth of life. And then it comes back, and you go, oh, I knew it. It's all perfect. I'm part of something so much bigger than this mind trip that I'm making out. You begin to develop faith. You begin to develop a faith, You start to realize, okay, here we go. Another episode of worrying that I'm not spiritual enough, And then you continue to just do what you keep doing. Because when you have faith, you do your spiritual practice, When you have faith that this is something great, this life is something profound, you continue to do your spiritual practice. Whether you feel bliss or not is aside from the point. That's not the point. The point is to remember what you are and remember what this is. And you can't say what it is. You don't intellectually know what it is. You are it. And the faith is in yourself. The faith is in knowing that you carry on, you go, you are here, you are still here, you are still here. You're make-believing that you're whatever, negative or positive, whatever it is, but you are still here. You are still here. And through enough times of the ups and downs and the, oh, this is so beautiful, and then, oh my God, I've lost it, and then, oh, this is so beautiful, and then through all that shit, you develop faith, you know? I've wanted to make a video on it before, its own video, but I've wanted to make a video on Kali, a Hindu goddess. Kali is that one who's got 4 arms and she's got a necklace of heads, and she'll be represented as either blue or black, and her tongue is sticking out, and she's got blood dripping from her tongue and big beady eyes, and she's got the necklace of heads and the skirt of human arms, and she's holding a sword in this hand and the head of some decapitated guy. I don't know the exact traditional story of it. And Kali is standing on Shiva. She has her foot up on Shiva. And this goddess, is very powerful to me. And I'll tie this into what the significance of these Hindu gods to me is. But Kali is very deep to me. Kali, I have her at the center of my altar. I have a statue of her in the center of my altar. And there's something about her, her ferociousness and her fierceness and her intensity, and all the stories I've heard. Kali is murder. Kali is war. Kali is chaos. Kali is the pain and the suffering and the depression and the hatred and the anger and the blood and the gore. Kali is everything you don't want. She's the death. She's everything you think is bad. When you think of what's bad, that's Kali. And you might think to yourself, why would anybody worship that goddess? Why would anybody even be attracted to that goddess? And I don't know why I'm attracted to Kali, but there's something about it with her that is very attractive to me, very seductive to me. There's something like cosmically sexy about it to me. And that might sound silly, but when shit is rough, when something rough happens, when, my dog passes away, or when someone I love passes away, or when something bad happens in my life, or when something really sad and rough happens in my life, something that really takes a toll on me emotionally, I see it. If I'm present, and that's important, if I'm present to witness this, I can see that is a manifestation of Kali, which is a part of reality itself. Death is inherent in reality. Suffering is inherent in reality. Evil is inherent in reality. And it allows me to put a face to what appears otherwise as meaningless and horrible and evil and demonic and just bad. Stuff that really rips at your heart and your emotions and makes you really question things and really sad and really down. If I can muster the awareness in myself to recognize that that is Kali, which is the counterpart of Shiva, if I can see that, it allows me to remain present. It allows me to remain on the surface and not drown in my emotional reactivity to the situation. If I can see something bad happen and see it as Kali, it allows me to understand that it's not an accident. It's not a fuck up. It's not evil. Maybe it's evil, but evil is inherent in reality, in the dualistic nature of reality. And when I was talking about describing the significance of what Hindu gods and goddesses can do for people, that's what it does for me, is it allows me to see that these gods aren't up in the sky like you picture God or like Jesus or whatever. They're not out in some alternate realm. They are this very reality. And the different manifestations of how this reality comes forth are the different manifestations of these gods and goddesses. And Kali is all the negative shit. And like I said, I don't know why she is so attractive to me in particular. There's certain other Hindu gods and stuff like that that are very attractive to me, but Kali just has this thing to her. And I think that's part of what it is, the reasoning as to why she's so attractive to me. I think part of what that is, it allows me to understand reality and how reality is, what is inherent in reality. It allows me to digest it in a mindful way, you know? Like, not to be grotesque or gory or whatever, but I was riding to work one morning, and I'm just riding down the road, and suddenly I see this little squirrel run out into the road, and then a car is coming, and the squirrel tries to run back to the other side and gets absolutely ran over and obliterated by this car coming, and the car runs it over, and I see the fucking squirrel that was just alive, just complete life and light happening. Now he's sitting there, a pile of bones and guts, and I see him twitching, and like obviously he's gonna die. And at first I was like, but then I realized, Kali, there she is. That's Kali. And what is Kali? A part of life. A part of life. Kali is part of life. And it allows me to breathe and go, oh, right. Doesn't mean I don't feel bad for the squirrel. It's just a matter of understanding how reality works, and that there's a lot of horrid shit and gory shit and negative, nasty, ugly stuff that happens in this life. And rather than seeing the spirit as just the beautiful and the good and the heavenly, also in that same stroke, recognizing that the spirit is the ugly and the bad and the negative as well. It creates a very wholesome and holistic recognition of reality, where you're not ignoring anything, you're not pushing anything away and then reaching for something else. It creates a very even outlook. And that's what these gods and goddesses can represent and help me with. When I look at Kali, I think about the horror, you know? And then I look at Shiva, and I think about the allness, the true I, the true self, the one who is outside of duality, and is the breathless and the prior. That's how I've described it before that. Shiva is the prior. Shiva is the before the word, you know? And all these gods and goddesses can help me, a microcosm little I, to understand reality and to work with reality on a deeper way. Oh, and I don't know why I really brought this up, but in describing that, you can see that when you're worried that you're not spiritual enough, and when you're afraid that you've fallen off the spiritual path, and you're feeling down, and you're feeling angry, and you're feeling sad, and you're feeling judgmental, and you're, going back to negative habits, and you're not fascinated in all of the beautiful affirmations and the working on yourself and the bettering yourself and the meditating, and you're just feeling like, fuck all that, man. Like, you know what I'm saying? When you're feeling that lull, when I'm feeling that lull, being able to recognize, another aspect of reality, another aspect of the way things are. I'm feeling low, and here I am. Here I am, and I'm feeling low. Let's keep working on myself. Let's keep doing the practices. Let's keep remembering and reminding and remembering and reminding. So yeah, in that sense, that fear is Kali. That fear is an aspect of reality, and it's just part of reality. Are you gonna believe in one aspect of reality and then lose yourself and lose awareness of all the others? Or are you going to remain open? Because in believing in one of those aspects of reality, you close yourself down. You collapse yourself down into that reality and that belief. But remaining open allows you to hold within you, yes, I feel down. Yeah, I'm afraid that I'm falling off the spiritual path. I'm afraid that God isn't hearing me, and I'm not being a faithful devotee. I'm afraid that I've lost it. And here I am. Remaining open and allowing yourself to just go with the flow, of what's happening, you know? I'm gonna head out, guys. If you watched through this whole video, thank you so much. I love you so dearly. I've said it before, but I don't choose when I make videos. I don't even really choose the topic. There's a level of it where it's like, I'm thinking I'm gonna make a video on this, and then I sit down and I start talking about it and stuff. But there's something. I'm not the director of my YouTube channel. Something comes and I talk about something that's moving through me in particular, and it can be frustrating as hell. That might sound all divine and beautiful, but for me, sometimes it's really frustrating and it can give me anxiety because I want to make videos. I want to make videos and talk about stuff and share with you guys my life journey and things that I've done and things that I'm thinking about and things that I'm feeling and relating with you guys and all that stuff. But I can't make a video when I'm trying to make a video. I can't make a video when it's like, oh, I want to make a video. Okay, let's make a video about, let's choose a topic and talk about this. That's not how this YouTube channel works. And that's frustrating for me. It's beautiful. It's paradoxical. It's bittersweet, I guess you could say, because I love the nature in which the videos do come about. But when I go 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, 2 months without making a video, I start to get like, oh, when's that thing gonna come through that makes these videos, you know? Because it's not me sitting down and choosing what to say. It's something making these videos. It's something guiding these videos. And talking about faith, like I have multiple times throughout this video, I have a faith in this YouTube channel where no, I don't have a schedule. I don't have a weekly schedule or a every other week schedule. It's a completely random schedule. And videos will just come. Videos, I'll just talk about something. Something will just happen. And it feels so good to me. There's such a calming and therapeutic aspect in my YouTube channel to me. And it feels so good. And I love this YouTube channel so much. And if you're watching right now, there's things I'm working on right now that I'm very excited to share and release and make available to you guys. I'm not gonna tell you what, but I'm working on some things right now and I'm very excited to release those to you guys. But yeah, I just wanted to share that. I've shared that before, but these videos come as they do, and yeah, they come when they do, and I don't know what I'm gonna talk about next, you know what I mean? But it will happen. We'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. So I love you guys so much. Thank you so much for watching. You guys mean so much to me. And I hope you enjoyed this video. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day or a wonderful rest of your night or whatever it is for you. And I'll see you all in the next video. Namaste.